Now that this stage is coming to an end, let's talk about some interesting budget options that we can play with the try-free clans. Stand up! Vanguard! With the introduction of Try-Free, we got some amazing new cards in Standard, as well as the return of Altmal, Asha and Chronojet. With the next stage booster, we could upgrade our Royal Paladin, Gear Chronicle and Neo Nectar decks to unleash their full potential of these particular units. However, these fully built decks tend to be on the more expensive side, which might be a turn-off for people on a budget. In today's video, we're going to look at how we can build cheap budget alternatives for these free clans. But this time, we're going to do it a little bit different than usual. With the release of the next stage booster, we also get the release of free trial decks for the clans supported in this booster, with the new boss unit as main unit in the trial deck. In this video, we're going to see how we can improve on these trial decks so we can build a more potent deck without breaking the bank. Now, with it explained, let's see how we can upgrade the Altmal trial deck for Royal Paladin. This deck costs around $30, which most of its value coming from the trial deck cards. Also, this list contains a brand new promo, meaning there isn't an actual market value set for the card. So for now, we're regarding it as $1 per copy, so depending on the actual value, the total could rise or fall. We start off with our main grade 3, which is of course Blue Sky Knight Altmal. This card allows us to swing in with high numbers, and it allows us to fetch our grade 2 so we can build the ideal board, and at the same time deck Finn so we can hit our many crit triggers. The next card is our secret weapon, as we have Pensive Intellectual Leonard. This is our finisher. If we time this card correctly, we can catch our opponent off guard and secure the fight. Most of our deck revolves around beating with high numbers, so they are encouraged to sentinel most of our attacks, which means the chance of them guarding this attack after using 1 or 2 sentinels is really slim. Now when we go down the grade 2s, the first card that we see is Absolute Blade Knight Liverot. This is a generic searcher that allows us to swarm the field, and it synergizes with Altmal, which can grab you the Liverots. Now the next 2 grade 2s are quite surprising for many people, as we have Rotary Sage Belk and Undulatory Sage Tarna. Both of them have the same effect as they can empower the other, but they can also empower multiple copies. So if we can swarm the field, we can actually give quite a lot of value to the board. And with Altmal fetching us 2 grade 2s, we can set up at least 2 14k attackers, and potentially even more if they can stay on the field, which is actually quite easy as they keep the power during the opponent's turn. Then the next grade 2 helps us with our win condition, as we have Diaconnect Dragon. This card allows us to soul charge, which fuels our win condition, as well as Liverot if needed. This grade 2 can also substitute as a 20k booster, which can help us with pressuring those sentinels out of our opponent's hand. The reason why Diaconnect can be used as a booster, and also the reason why Tarna and Belk can become a lot better, is thanks to our last grade 2, Starlight Violinist. This grade 2 allows us to boost with all of our grade 2s, as well as intercepting from the back row. This is great for something like Diaconnect, as it becomes a 20k booster, but it's insane with Tarna and Belk, as they together can form at least a 28k column, which will become even higher with multiple copies on the board, and they also have increased shield value, which adds on the defensive nature of the deck. Now with the grade 2s done, we enter our grade 1 lineup, and the first one is the grade 1 from the trial deck, as we have Lunar Crescent Knight Velox. This grade 1 is great for early tempo plays, as we can be very aggressive, as we can call down other grade 1s or triggers and still be able to return them to our hand for defensive options. Besides the aggressive option, Velox can also be used on a more defensive tool, as when we're up against a control clan, we run the risk of losing our Violinist. So with Velox, we can keep the Violinist safe in our hands, so we can at least utilize it for pure offensive purposes. The last card in the list is Knight of Exemplary Sword Lucius. This card is mainly used as extra soul, so we can fuel cards like Velox, Liverot, as well as our finisher. The added bonus is that this card draws into more cards, so we can potentially get to our win condition on a more consistent basis, as we need to hard draw into our grade 3s unlike our grade 2s. As explained, the main idea behind this deck is to create high columns to pressure opponents to utilize their sentinels as early on, so they have no way of blocking Leonard. We can create solid numbers with Altmal, as he can become a 28k attacker on its own. We can turn our grade 2s in solid boosters with Starlight Violinist. Dia Connect is a grade 20k attacker or booster, and Tarna and Belk can be insane side columns if we have them on the field. If we can build 2 columns out of a Tarna and a Belk, and we have a Starlight Violinist on the field, we can create 2 38k columns which are 19k during our opponent's turn, and they can intercept for 15k shield. However, once you intercept with 1 and it retires, then all the other cards will lose power and shield. So they are ideal defensive option for in a final turn scenario where you just want to survive till next turn, so you can use your Leonard to finish the game. Speaking of Leonard, the only other way to block Leonard without sentinels is with interceptors or special superior called guardians. But with a 10k boost of our grade 2s, means intercepting is basically off the table as it becomes a 23k attack. But with a 20k Dia Connect Dragon or an empowered Belk and Tarna, puts it out of range of almost anything most decks can muster. Another way to empower Leonard is with our Force markers, as we can use Force 1 to make him strong enough even without a boost. However, Force 2 might be the better outcome for this deck, as we can create solid numbers and rewriting isn't something the deck will do often. And with a double crit attacks and 12 crits in deck, increases the chance of putting our opponent in lethal range early on. It might be even better to put the marker on the rearguard circle, as when they are at 4, you can just call the Leonard to the column with the Force 2 marker and end the game right then and there. Now that we've seen what an upgraded Altmal deck can do, let's look at what an upgraded Chronojet trial deck looks like. This gear deck costs around $18, however that is counting the Naboos as well as the quickie workers as $1 a piece. This is because they will be reprinted soon, which most likely will drop the prices of these cards to around that range. So the prices most likely will be a bit higher right now, but that all depends for which price you can get those 2 particular cards. Now let's take a look at the list itself and start with the grade 4s, and first card we see is Interdimensional Beast Metallica Phoenix. This is a great pressure card, as with the triple drive combined with the 12 crits will force a lot of shield from your opponent's hand. This is really great if they don't have a sentinel, as it means less effective guard once we go into our Chronojet attacks. Metallica Phoenix is also great with our rearguard Chronojets, as most drive checks means more potential power we can get from triggers. The second grade 4 is Interdimensional Beast Isolate Lion. This is a great +1 card, as it can help to set up board, but the big value comes from the fact that we can search our grade 3s. This can either help us to get a rearguard Chronojet so we can pressure with the Sentinel Restrict, or we can go into our Bali, which can then help us search for the Chronojet and put it into our hand. For the grade 3s, we run, of course, Chronojet Dragon. This card allows us to utilize our grade 4s, but is also our win condition. We can set up a multiple Chronojet turn where we attack with 2 or 3 Chronojets with Sentinel Restrict, or we can stack up on Force markers over the course of a single game and swing with 1 huge Chronojet. For the Sporting grade 3, we have Steam Fighter Bali. This card allows us to search our Chronojets, which helps us with both our main plays. It helps us with getting them to our hand, so we can potentially call a front row of Chronojets, or we can keep them in our hand so we can keep rewriting turn after turn to create more Force markers. As for the grade 2s, we run Steam Mechanic Naboo. This is mainly as a consistency card, as it helps us to draw into the cards that we need, but it also fills our soul for quickie worker, so we can have even more draws over the course of the fight. The second grade 2 is the grade 2 from the trial deck Stroboscope Dragon. This unit gives some field control option in the case we need to get rid of a certain card, and mid to late game can potentially substitute as a cycle card. For the final grade 2, we have Steam Maiden Ishbi. This is yet another draw engine, but works quite effectively with our other grade 2s. She can retire herself so she can help to pay the cost for Naboo, and she can work together with Stroboscope Dragon to compensate their weaknesses early game, as Stroboscope is a minus in the early game, and Ishbi might be a bit hard to activate that early on. Stroboscope minus might help you to reach Ishbi's hand restriction, and then she allows you to draw the lost cards back. So for a Counterblast and a Soul Blast, you can retire a card and cycle 2 cards. As for the grade 1s, we run Baron Rover as a grade 3 discard fodder. This allows us to utilize Chronojet's skill on a more consistent basis without needing to discard the other Chronojets from our hand. Then followed up, we have Quickie Worker. This is yet another consistency card. It allows us to shuffle back those grade 4s so we can keep rewriting with Chronojet, and it also allows us to potentially get some extra draws. With this list, there might be an alternative use for her, as in this list we might want to also reshuffle Chronojets back to the deck, as we can fetch them back with either Isolate Lion or even Steam Fighter Bali. Now for the final grade 1, we have our secret weapon that makes our Chronojets deadly. We have Steam Skara Kalain. This card, combined with Chronojet Sentinel Restrict and enough firepower, can create an unguardable attack. The main strategy behind this deck is to use your different grade 4s and grade 3s to apply pressure and weaken your opponent's defense, and then sweep in with an unguardable Chronojet attack. As mentioned before, you have 2 main routes to take. Either go for multiple Chronojet attacks in a single turn, or build up one massive Chronojet with multiple force markers. To perform the multiple Chronojet strategy, you mainly rely on Isolate Lion and Bali. Isolate Lion can get you the Chronojets directly, but leaves them vulnerable on the field. So use this if you want to end the game that particular turn. The other option is to use Bali, as the Chronojet will go to your hand and you can build your resource up for a later swing turn. Also, using Isolate Lion to get a Bali that gets you a Chronojet means you filtered your deck for 2 cards instead of 1. To perform this singular massive Chronojet attack, you mainly focus on drawing and fetching your Chronojets to hand, so you can keep rewriting turn after turn, as well as superior writing into your grade 4s for massive force marker acceleration. Again, we use Bali as well as the multitude of our draw skills to get these cards, and another option to increase our success rate is using Quickie Worker to put back Soul Blasted Chronojet, so we have more targets for Bali to hit. With this singular strategy, we have 2 options we can go for: a Vanguard push or a Rearguard push. This basically means, where do we stack the force markers? Putting it on the Vanguard means our grade 4s during the match will pressure our opponent. But putting it on the Rearguard means during our kill turn we can go into a Metallica Phoenix and have an additional drive check. Going for the Vanguard means we can swing with Chronojet whenever we want, but we have less general pressure. Going for the Rearguard option means we have general pressure, but also means we need an additional copy of Chronojet to get the guard restrict attack. The final addition to the win condition is of course Steam Skara Kalain. This card tells us to make the attack hit in most cases means we need to attack with a 73k attack. This is a 13k base plus 3 heal triggers. Chronojet plus Kalain is already 26. After the first grade 3 turn, it would be 46 thanks to the 2 force markers. If we can rewrite, then after the second grade 3 turns, we'll be at 66k, meaning in most scenarios, your opponent can't guard it, as it means they need 2 heals and a crit trigger. If you hit a trigger in your drive checks, then that means the attack will most likely go through. Of course, this sounds really slow, but actually, on turn 4, this can be deadly, because if you can rewrite a Chronojet, then that means the column is 56k, and you can go into a triple drive Metallica Phoenix. This means, without triggers, they need 3 critical triggers in hand to stop the attack. If you hit 1 trigger, then they suddenly need 2 heals and a crit. This in itself can be game ending if you read your opponent's hand, as not every opponent will have 3 high shield value cards in their hand, so it all comes down to the timing. This all wraps it up for the Chronojet deck, which means we have only one more list to talk about, and that is the upgraded Asha deck. So let's see what Neo Nectar can do on a budget. This Neo Nectar deck costs around $29, which most of its value lying in the 4 copies of Ines and an Elma, so the better deal you get on those cards, the cheaper this deck becomes. The main grade 3, surprise surprise, is Ranunculus Flower Maiden Asha. This card allows us to create a solid amount of tokens, and as a Vanguard can even create the Asha Flower Fairy token to create even more pressure, which also allows us to use tokens without wasting them by calling units on top of them. For the support role, and even as a potential backup right target, we have Cornflower Flower Maiden Ines. She not only allows us to flood the board, but can even become a giant attacker or booster when combined with Anelma. She can get a massive 15k power boost for free thanks to Arsha alone, as Arsha can create 2 tokens and also create a Flower Fairy token, so thanks to that can easily reach high massive numbers. When we go down the grade lineup, we see the grade 2 of the trial deck, Blossoming Maiden Kala. This card, just like Arsha, can create 2 tokens for Counterblast, but can also become a solid 15k rearguard. She can be used as a great early game card if you want the pressure on turn 2 with the help of the extra tokens, and in combination with Anelma can be used as a great 15k booster during your grade 3 turns. The second grade 2 that we have is Bad Boy Welgeki. This is mainly here to create plant tokens and for aggressive plays, but also to fuel your Flower and Fairy tokens, as sacrificing free units is quite costly. So this can help us with the strain on our resources. Also, this card can give our Ines another 10k boost when used on our later turns. The last grade 2 that we run is Omantis Maiden Anelma. This grade 2 gives us the nice early tempo option, as it can create a token and allows us to go +1, but her main use is in her second ability, as it allows us to turn our massive Ines beatsticks into massive boosters, as ideally you want to have Arsha as your Vanguard and Ines as your rearguard. Having that board as well as having Anelma on the field allows you to put the Ines in the back row where she is safe from attacks. In the grade 1 slots we have Maiden of Sweetberry. This grade 1 allows us to, just like Anelma, to have potentially early aggression. But it's another unit that superior calls tokens for Arsha and Ines, and it also creates Soul, which can be a more limited resource in this deck, as seen as 2 of our main units uses it. Another nice upside to this card is that it's a 13k booster. The second grade 1 is Devoted Maiden Tanya. This card is to support the pressure of our Vanguard as well as the Flower Fairy token and basically nothing else. The final card in this list is the one-off of Blowball Squire. This grade 1 fills in the similar role as Bad Boy Welgeki, however it's more limited as we can't have any plant tokens on the field to use it. One way to fulfill this is to call it on top of a plant token if we only have 1 on the field, or sacrifice the plant tokens first to create a Flower Fairy token. Another role for this card is pure early aggression, as on turn 1 we can call this and almost instantly fill our entire board. Now that we've looked at all the cards, let's talk about our main game plan of this particular deck. As expected, we want to utilize the Arsha Flower Fairy token to pressure our opponent, and we even have one specific support card that powers these units up in the likes of Tanya. While we have the token on the board, we also get the full use out of our Kella and Anelma, as we have an extra copy of our Vanguard on the board. On the other side, we have Ines, which can be utilized as a massive beater or booster, and with the various superior call skills, be it via her own skill or the many token generators, we can increase her power quite easily. However, this does open up a decision. The more cards you use for the early aggression, the less cards you have that empower your Ines as you start using your tokens to pressure in the early game. So the idea is to find the correct balance in early aggression and saving your cards to empower your Ineses in the mid to late game. The second thing you need to learn about this deck is the use of the correct force marker. Both markers have an impact on the Flower Fairy token as well as on your performance. Your Arsha will be 23k on the first right turn, making your token also 23k. But your Vanguard can be much higher with a strong booster like Ines, so Force 2 sounds very reasonable. However, this boosting power will not be given to the Arsha token, and after the first turn your Arsha will go back to a 13k base. This in itself means that if you want to keep under pressure, you need to rely on Force 1 so your attacks will come in hard. Because even if you use Force 2 and you keep rewriting after the second write, the marker itself becomes useless, as putting a Force 2 marker on underneath the Arsha Flower Fairy token does absolutely nothing. So to compensate for that, we run 12 crits. So our Vanguard most likely will hit a crit. This in itself allows us to use the Ines in the other column, so you will generate 3 high hitting attacks turn after turn. And with that, we talked about all the free decks and how we can upgrade all free trial decks. Altmau, Asha and Chronojet brings interesting new playstyles to their clans that can be experienced on any budget level. You can use the trial decks as a great starting point to slowly work your way up to the fully built VR build, and the decks in this video can be used as a stepping stone towards that goal. This is basically the best time to start playing Vanguard, and these trial decks, as well as the added budget options, are probably the best gateway for new and known budget players. So get your friends together and start introducing them to this wonderful game that is Cardfight Vanguard. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this budget deck video for the next stage extra booster set. Usually these type of videos are the last video for a particular set before we move on to the next big set for Vanguard. But this time we have one more special video in store for you guys, as tomorrow we're gonna do something unique, something special, and I hope you will be enjoyed by that idea, and who knows, we might do it more often. But what that video topic is and what we're gonna do, that is something you're gonna have to find out by tuning in back tomorrow. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters over at patreon.com for making this video and everything on the channel possible. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that we're doing on the channel, then you can simply do that by subscribing and hitting the bell button to be updated for future videos. Or you can help us a bit more directly by going over to patreon.com/Vanguard Insider and become a patron today. But that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.